Here we are in Ceal Tingley Park, and the plans are here to turn it into a Indigenous cultural center. In the background we can see Sugarloaf Mountain, also called Mount Belgano. It's actually an old volcano cone. That would be right about there. You can see it right there. That's where it is. And this is the George Massey Bridge over there, a new bridge built in the 1970s. And behind it is the old wooden bridge built in the 1920s. Before that, they actually had a ferry which would take cars across to the other side of the river to what's called West Quesnel, or the west side. Here we have a beautiful alleyway of trees and so on. And this meadow right here is, I imagine, where the Indigenous Cultural Center will be built. Hopefully the trees will stay there. Hopefully they'll somehow work around these trees, because they've been here already for more than 50 years probably. Here's one of the benches which was dedicated to Julia Brown from the Quesnel Can-Can troupe, 1992. Remember when they used to have that Can-Can? They don't seem to do that anymore. The Billy Barker days. That was in 1992. And this is a beautiful meadow here, where the cultural center will probably be built. Now of course it's all snowed in. Another beautiful view of the Fraser River. Down below is the confluence of the Quesnel River. You can see it flowing in just down below, right over there. And that's the Fraser River, the main one. The Quesnel River flows into the Fraser River. Another one of the steam boilers they used in the steamships at one time. They were actually used not in the steamships but in the mines, but they may have been used in the steamships as well too, to power them. And this was originally called Ceal Tingley Memorial Park. He was one of the older guys. He lived from 1913 to 1985. He was a commissioner, alderman, mayor of Quesnel from 1954 through 1976. And he officially opened this 18th day of July 1986. It was opened up, this park, in 1986. Of course, now this land has been regifted back to the First Nations people who had the original rights to this land in the first place, and there will be an Indigenous Cultural Center built here, and which will portray the culture that went way before the first colonial settlers came here in the 18th century, way before then. Snowy day. in Quesnel, of course. Quesnel, British Columbia. Here we see the railway bridge that's just crossing in the far distance, right over there. Right there, the railway bridge. These are the two. That's the Quesnel River right there, and there's the Fraser River, and we are right there where that sign is, Riverfront Park. It's part of the Riverfront Park system. There's many interesting things here to see. There's a salmon smokehouse, pit native house, footbridge, site of old cable ferry, Sugarloaf Mountain, the one I pointed out before, right over there, Sugarloaf Mountain, site of first turnip field, which prevented people from getting scurvy actually, so that's actually quite important too. Marsh House, which sits way up there on the hillside. It's now used as a restaurant and a pub and so on. It's been added on, but the original structure still exists up there. It's a log structure, which is painted red right as you go into the west side. Historic rail shovel, Cornish wheel, etc., etc. Much more to see. Now we're going to get a little bit into the history. The southern carrier fishing. Fish has always been an important food in the diet of Aboriginal people of British Columbia. Before European contact, the southern carrier, the local First Nations people, normally fished for salmon with gaff hooks, usually carved from bone. These hand-carved hooks were tied to a stick with a long rope. When the salmon was speared, the rope would release from the stick and the fish would be towed onto the shore. After European contact, the bone hooks were replaced with strong wire. The people would bend the wire, flatten the edges with sledgehammer, and sharpen the end with a file. Using fish traps made with red willow, southern people also fished for trout, whitefish, and kokanee in the many lakes in the area. Fish would normally be split and hung, often over fire, and dried for winter use. Although the Quesnel area was the territory of La Token, or Red Bluff, people each summer they would invite their neighbours to this area where the salmon runs. This would often result in huge gatherings, and it was time for weddings, contests, other celebrations. During the annual run, southern carrier people still fish for salmon every year while standing on a platform that extends over the river. They now use dip nets to catch the fish. And that's the end of it right there. Beautiful river in the far distance.